China Foreign Ministry released on statement U.S. hegemony and its perils. Oh, Jesus, what the fuck? Yo, this is the only kind of manifesto that I'm on board with, okay? When right-wingers write manifestos, that just means like, you know, some mass shooting's gonna happen. But when anyone that even calls themselves communists, when they write a manifesto, you know shit's about to pop off, but not in a bad way. It's okay. The people who hate you are the people who comment insane shit on Ukraine war porn subreddits. Yeah. They briefly mentioned China's 12-point peace plan that starts with a ceasefire, then showed a State Department guy saying we will pressure China to stay out of it. That U.S. hegemony and its perils drop is fucking good. Yeah, even if we read this, okay, and talk about how good this is, this will not be well received. There is no shot that this will be well received by the American audience. Okay, they will look to this and go, "Fuck these guys. These guys suck." Fight till the last Ukrainian. American policy in Afghanistan has been a battle to the very last Afghan, says China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They've been doing a lot of fucking PR around this, by the way. It seems like America was like, do not fucking arm the Russians. Do not arm the Russians. Do not get yourselves involved. But everything I've seen from the Chinese front on what level of involvement they have with respect to Ukraine, it's basically, I mean, and I haven't seen the full details. And I don't know, because what China says and what China ends up doing is, of course, always going to be different. They are a nation state after all. They're an autonomous nation state after all. And they are also competing against America to become the new superpower, the global hegemonic superpower. So for that reason, what they say and what they end up doing will be very different. Always. That is the case. However, everything that I have seen thus far has basically been, you know, here is how we want to pressure Russia and how the United States should pressure Ukraine to come to a peaceful ceasefire, a peace agreement. American audience, you mean libs who have been less astray by so-called socialist streamers that make defending Western hegemony their full-time job? That's everyone, though. You're looking at it from an incredibly narrow point of view. Like, I'm sorry, with like very, very small, with like very marginal differences, there are only a handful of motherfuckers who are both critical of Russia, obviously, openly call out Russia, while simultaneously still talking about the United States' involvement in all of these affairs. And the people that turn around and like defend the United States being the hegemonic superpower and much better than like, living in a multipolar world with like China also gaining prominence, those people are just American. They're just repeating pretty much the same thing that MSNBC repeats, but with like leftist aesthetics. Okay? They haven't called out Russia or even called it an invasion. Their plan doesn't say to withdraw troops. That's why I'm going to look at it. I haven't looked at it yet. Everything I've seen thus far only revolves around them talking about stressing or pushing Russia. Like their involvement being, we are going to push Russia to stop. You guys have no backup war, though. Where is all this war machine money going to go if you pull out of Ukraine? Well, it's not going to happen anyway. The U.S. considers release of intelligence on China's potential arms transfer to Russia, which, by the way, again, remember, this is why I said what they say and what they end up doing could be two entirely different things. Okay? That is not surprising to me. I don't know if they would actually do this, considering that this only extends the war, okay, which is not beneficial, I don't think, to Chinese interests in general. But also exactly what the United States has been doing from the jump, very openly so. So just remember that. It's just funny that the United States is like, you cannot give arms to anyone. How fucking dare you? That's our shit. The fuck do you think you're doing here? I do not know what they would get. I do not know what they get from this. I do not know what is happening here, dude. What the fuck? Did someone bypass this paywall? Do you believe China has good intentions? I don't believe anyone has a good I don't believe a nation state has good intentions. A state has one intention: the continuation of its power and its global influence. The fuck do you mean? Good intentions. I've never in my entire life been like, man, this state sure has some good intentions. That's not a real thing. Come on, I think there's a difference between arming the pointless aggressors versus defenders. Yeah, sure, there is. No, you're right about that. Giving weapons to Russia versus giving weapons to Ukraine does have a moral difference, okay? But that moral difference is absolutely marginal if your goal ultimately is to stop the war. I faintly recall similar headlines about China preparing to send arms to Russia during early stages of the war, so who knows if it's just lies? It could be real. It could definitely be real. Here's the article by paywall bypass. Thank you, my friend. Okay. Angela Merkel literally said that the West never intended to follow through with Minsk, so how could you ever negotiate in good faith with the West? I love when people say this. It sucks to suck, but you just have to. There's nothing you can do. And also, Ukrainians literally say this as well. Like, I love when people who are like, well, I'm on Russia's side on this matter. The fuck? What do you mean? Oh, how can you do this? How can you negotiate in good faith with the West? The fuck do you mean? How can you negotiate in good faith with the West? So then it's totally valid for the Ukrainians to say the same thing. So what do you do in that situation? I guess just keep the fight going, right? And that only benefits one group of people. It certainly doesn't fucking benefit the Ukrainian people. It doesn't benefit the Russian conscripts that don't want to be there. It benefits American defense contractors. That's it. Like the military industrial complex. Both sides have to be forced by external influences to follow the conditions of an agreement put forward to a T, whether it be Chinese pressure on Russia or Western pressure on Ukraine, which is not even a thing. I mean, that's like it's way easier to do. Anyway. Is Chinese industrial complex, military industrial complex a thing, like selling arms to various governments? I can't lie to you. I don't know like how deeply invested China is. I'm sure they're invested in the development of weapons and stuff. I just don't know how deep that investment goes. I'm sure it's increasing. I mean, it's laughable to even consider it anywhere near the United States. There's no one. We are the goats at that, as I described before. We are literally the number one at that. Like, I'm the number one at serving you the top of the hour ad break. America is the number one at fucking developing arms and selling them, right? Like, that's not even a thing. Like, you will never come near. China could not imagine in their wildest dreams of being even half as good as I am at serving the top of the hour ad break and then telling you that if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month. Hopefully you use it on your favorite broadcaster. Hopefully that's me, okay? Or you can get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Big Boy Gamer Man, thank you for the 5 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Here is the 3-minute ad break now. Ukrainians want to fight. Why deny them defending their cities? There are people in this chat who support China and Russia blindly because they're naive. Ukrainians want to fight. Why deny them defending their cities? Well, it's not even about like what Ukrainians want in this regard, because Ukrainians also understandably want, Article 5 to also cover the Ukrainian territory. They wanted Ukraine to be a no-fly zone. Why did that not happen? And in that regard, we just totally fucking didn't listen to what they wanted, because the reality is that their genuine interests are completely irrelevant to this conversation. And whenever I say this, people get very upset at me, right? Whenever I say this, people are like, well, Hasan, how dare you say that? Well, I say it because it's the truth. What the Ukrainians want is completely irrelevant to what America wants. Okay? America will utilize what Ukraine wants to market their moves, okay, to make it seem like what they're doing is like honest and courageous and just. But ultimately, their goal is to just sell weapons, right? And you need to understand that. That's something that you need to understand, because Ukrainians want a lot of things, and a lot of them are just. Wanting an end to the war and wanting Russians to leave their country is the most understandable, most just. A feeling of emancipation is the most valid feeling that one can have. Okay? How you reach that end goal is, of course, always going to be different. Aren't you painting the U.S. government as a little monolithic? My friend, I'm literally an anti-capitalist. Of course I paint all governments as a little monolithic from the perspective of analyzing their actions with a materialist framing. The U.S. government is monolithic in the sense that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and everyone else is working at the behest of corporations. One of the most viable industries in this country is the defense industry, okay? Defense. Even calling it the Defense Department or the defense industry is literal propaganda. It's an industry for war. Okay? Like, this notion that it's like, aren't you portraying the United States as a little monolithic? Yeah, we have a diversity of opinion, maybe even in the government, but there is no genuine support for undermining the ever-expanding discretionary military spending in this fucking country. There's always bipartisan support for that. Where do you think that comes from? It should be called the Department of War. It was called that. That used to be what it was called. Yeah. And then they swapped it because they were like, we got to fucking greenwash this, whitewash it a little bit. U.S. man bad. NSA is watching 27. UN. U.S. is buying big Ukraine grain shipment for hungry regions. What do you mean? U.S. man bad. Like, are you saying that they're doing a good thing? Like, yeah, I'm glad that they're doing a good thing. What the fuck? Not every single fucking dollar that is sent into Ukraine is also being sent on weapons either. Yeah, exactly. They fed some poor Iraqis too, bro. What the fuck? Come on, man. It's called branding. We just talked about how the War Department turned into the Department of Defense, and you literally sent me a marketing piece. The fuck? Wait, what? What do you mean, dude? He's the guy who during the Iraq War was literally sending that. Sending the links about how the United States is actually here to fucking spread democracy into Iraq. Some grain is the least the U.S. could do for Somalia. Okay, let me just explain something to you, okay? And I have a very cynical view of all states, which includes the Chinese state as well, which is precisely why I said what China says and what China does could be ultimately two dramatically different things, okay? So remember that part. Now, having said that, I'm incredibly cynical of all governments, but certainly very cynical of the United States government. I don't know the exact details of this, but if I were a gambling man, I would say that they're buying these big grain shipments specifically for whichever hungry region they choose to do soft power in. Sure that they're not dishing it out to every single person unconditionally, and more so utilizing this to do what they do all the time. U.S. aid is an arm of the CIA for this reason. Have you seen the CGP Gray video, Rules for Rulers? I struggle to see how socialism would even be possible given the natural mechanisms of power. Wait, what? Natural mechanisms of power? Why would you point to nature or anything that's natural about power when man, in the way that you understand it, lived completely devoid of enclosures for longer than it's lived with enclosures and capitalism? The idea that it is natural for man, to like fall in line with this natural mechanism of power is a silly one. We're not even talking about a natural hierarchy, which, no matter what it is, no matter what you think it is, mankind's entire existence revolves around dominating nature. I read the book that is based off of. The book is hogwash and doesn't even take into account capitalism as a force outside of direct control of individual states, i.e. the U.S. being a hegemonic force for capital. Talking about enclosures, do you hear that Aaron Rodgers has been living in a cave for weeks now? That's my goat. Oh my God. He's still doing peyote to figure out if he should go to the Jets. I love that. I love how Will Neff's fucking entire attitude, entire outlook is reliant on a man. No, he came out yesterday, is reliant on a man who took fucking drugs and sat in a cave for like a week. Like, he decides to go to the Jets. Will Neff's a happy guy, okay? He doesn't decide to go to the Jets. Will Neff is very sad. Anyway, how do you make life-defining decisions? Not by... What is this? This is... Okay, we're going to get back to Ukraine and Russia and America and all that. Guy at the gym just found out I was gay, and he spent like the next 30 minutes explaining how he was not gay. Like, I get it, bro. No homo. Winky, smug face. I'm new here. I don't understand how socialism will work when there's widespread corruption of India and I saw our socialistic ideal crumble because of it. Bro, what do you mean? Indian socialism. I mean, there's a lot we can talk about with respect to Indian socialism, which is one of the largest communist parties on the fucking planet and one of the most successful. But the current government in India is let's just say it's in the opposite end of the spectrum of socialism. If we're going to talk about the Indian government. The current government, motherfucker, do you understand how socialism works in India? Are you talking to me or are you talking to the other chatter? The red pill YouTuber, the red pill YouTube, the Islam pipeline is growing. Sooner or later, Agent Aiden will be Mujahideen. Oh, he won't. Okay. The chief minister of Tamil Nadu, one of the most progressive states in India, his name is M.K. Stalin Law. No, I didn't say that there wasn't. I did not say that there wasn't Indian socialism. As I called out, Mujahideen. That's funny. As I correctly pointed out, one of the largest active communist parties with actual power on the planet is in India. Having said that, however, the BJP is not fucking. It's not. It's the other thing. It's not socialist. It's the other thing. It's definitely closer to the F word. How successful is the TKP out of curiosity? Not successful at all. Turkey is America's lapdog. What do you mean? Like, brother, there were literal weapons pointed at the USSR in Turkey. What do you mean? How is the TKP in Turkey? Like, how do you think the Cold War happened? And how do you think Turkey operated during the Cold War? Who do you think they sided with? Also, another shout out to NATO once again. Very cool stuff. Okay. Okay. Where the fuck were we? What were we watching? Oh, we were watching this. The U.S. keeps saying that it wants to maintain peace, but in fact, it has made profit from war. American military enterprises have earned a lot of money from the war in Ukraine. Will the U.S. feel shame? The U.S. has pursued a policy of fighting the last Afghan to the last Afghan in Afghanistan. Do they want to let Ukraine fight to the last Ukrainian today? So here is China's position on the political settlement of the Ukraine crisis. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China dropped this 12-point plan in detail. Number 1, respecting the sovereignty of all countries. Like that. Number 2, abandoning the Cold War mentality. Number 3, ceasing hostilities. Number 4, resuming peace talks. Number 5, resolving the humanitarian crisis. Bro, this is some... I know that every leftist loves to say, oh my God, this is so base. Everyone loves to say, like, everyone loves to say, oh, this is so fucking base. This is so base. But all of this is just like, what are they, the Progressive Caucus in the Democratic Party? What the fuck is this shit? 6, protecting civilians and prisoners of war. I mean, this is like PR. Come on. Keeping nuclear plants safe, reducing strategic risks, facilitating grain exports, stopping unilateral sanctions, keeping industrial and supply chains stable, promoting post-conflict reconstruction. I like all of this. I mean, especially the later ones are a lot better. So let's take a look. Respecting the sovereignty of all countries, universally recognized international law, including the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter, must be strictly observed. The sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of all countries must be effectively upheld. All countries, big or small, strong or weak, rich or poor, are equal members of the international community. All parties should jointly uphold the basic norms of governing international relations to defend international fairness and justice, equal and uniform application of international law. Security of a country should not be pursued at the expense of others. The security of a region should not be achieved by strengthening or expanding military blocs. There is no simple solution to a complex issue. All parties should follow the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security in the bearing in mind the long-term peace and stability of the world, help forge a balanced, effective, sustainable European security architecture. I mean, this is pretty good. China doesn't follow the first point. Yeah, dude, this is America shit. They're doing America shit. Hello. Welcome to a world where China is saying we are an economic superpower and we also get to do America shit just like America does. Like, whenever Americans in the chat go, dude, I can't believe China's saying this. Like, what about Taiwan? What about Tibet? What about blah, blah, blah? It's like, bro, yeah, exactly. No, this is China's America moment. That's it. Okay. Ban. An insane thing to say in the chat. The old American whataboutism renewed. I mean, Americans will say that. Does that make the statement wrong? No, it doesn't. But it's like when America says it. They just say it, but like they're very good at copying IP, okay? And this is American IP that they're doing. This reads like Biden's State of the Union, Lamau. We know we ain't getting any of it. Yes. The only thing that I would say here, and I'm not even talking about like what America has done versus what China has done. Of course, like pound for pound, come on, America, number one superpower for since post World War II. Get the fuck out of here. I will not be having a conversation about like how devastating China is or how devastating China has been for other countries, especially when like, you know, we're sitting here in America. There's no comparison there. We are number one. China's not even number two, okay? China wishes they could be number two in devastation. So we're OP on that front. We're not having that conversation. I don't give a fuck about how much you're going to be like communism killed 1 guerrillion people, blah, blah, blah. America's like number one, number two, number three, number four, okay? But what is important here is where China is, okay? Now, China can say all this stuff. What's important to me is, will they follow through on it? And what's also important here is that China ostensibly is on the Russian side in this proxy war that is continuing in Ukraine. So for that reason, if they get, let's say, assurances from the West, they could potentially put pressure and move beyond just writing these wonderful articles, you know, becoming the article heads that America is, okay, which everyone soy faces over whenever China comes out and writes something like this, okay, like American leftists love soying over this, like when in fact, like this is, you know, NATO writes articles like this too. It's like, you know, it doesn't mean anything. So what matters is the actions. What matters is how hard they push. It also matters that they're writing this from the side of Russia. So they do have some pressure points here. Now, I'll just say it like this. I like to look at the genuine, like I like to look at the benefits that either, I like to look at the benefits that nation states will have with the continuation of war. And as far as, yeah, there's a flash flood warning, I know. I just got it. National Weather Service, a flash flood warning is in effect for this area until 10 p.m. PST. This is a dangerous and life-threatening situation. Do not attempt to travel unless you're fleeing an area to subject to flooding. Run. Basketball stream. I'm sorry, guys. I did this with my new haircut. Going for basketball would be a water polo stream. True. This is crazy. Sorry, I'm just screenshotting and then sending to my family. I don't know. I don't know what what benefits, what tangible benefits, China has from the continuation of this war. I guess cheap oil would be one of them, right? I guess NATO's attention of the Western world is focused on Ukraine, so they're not like trying to whip up frenzy within Taiwan. That's another benefit. Okay, gas, yeah. I think a strong Russia is better for them to have a powerful ally they share a giant land border with. Yeah. But also, I guess there are benefits. Virtually every fucking India is taking so much oil from Russia, but it doesn't matter because they will ally with USA against China. Yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about that right now. I'm talking about like China's own personal dog in the fight. I think that a weakened Russia is bad for China overall. China gets a weaker Russia that has to rely on China more and more, and the USA spending a fuck ton of money. No, because China and Russia are always going to be not like ideologically aligned or anything, but they still are going to be aligned on the front of being against the United States hegemonic power. So for that reason, I think it probably benefits China that like Russia at least has some stability, some level of stability. So yeah, China and Russia are adversarial. They're just against the USA because it's more powerful than both. Yeah. It's not just China that wants to push for negotiations. The global south is now under heavy fire for non-alignment, even facing secondary sanctions. Some forms of neutrality may be cynical or transactional, but scaling the war to the global level is an apocalyptic gesture. The NAM should be renewed instead. The West versus Russia, why the global south isn't taking sides. Oh, the thing I was going to say about this, hold on. The other thing I was going to say is it's better for China to put an end to this war specifically because like a lot of the countries that do need the grain and need like the continued operations of Ukraine, like the economic engine of Ukraine, whether it be grain or other things, these are countries that China has a lot of interest in. So it causes instability in the third world. And I think maybe that could be another reason as well. China has an idiot problem where its current head is an idiot and will do unpredictable, idiotic things. So analysis based on rationality doesn't always work. What do you mean? Bro, that is, I mean, we don't do that kind of analysis, even though the one time that analysis was true was fucking Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine. But I don't even know how you can say that about fucking Xi Jinping. That's crazy to say, especially when Joe Biden is our president. What the fuck? If anything, he's too smart. What the fuck? I thought that was the point. The global South countries clearly see China has the force needed to end the war. They do not see the USA or the West as a group that wants this war to end. Then they wonder why Africa, Latin America will continue to expand trade with China. They can keep crying China debt trap, a Trump admin phrase. I don't know why you are so cynical when it comes to China. If you are a socialist, you should see that China significantly curbs the power of capital. Isn't capital precisely what you believe corrupts governments? Yes, but I also understand that there is nationalistic interests within China as well that are not just about undermining Western hegemonic power. While China internally will utilize the power of capital to its own benefit, something that I always talk about is in China, corporations work for the government. In America, the government works for the corporations. Now, that leads to a lot of, corporate malpractice, genuinely getting some kind of actual accountability that is unimaginable in the United States, right? Having said that, however, because of the amount of power that the Chinese government holds, they could technically, and sometimes do, in certain instances, do things that are not super favorable by the people, right? Oftentimes, as far as when we look at a larger snapshot of Chinese development, it has helped develop rural areas and brought out billions almost of people out of poverty. Okay? That is true. That is an undeniable fact. But there is still nationalistic interest there as well. Fidel Castro, Xi Jinping is one of the strongest and most capable revolutionary leaders I have met in my life. Okay. I mean, sure. Anyway. So yeah. Since becoming the world's most powerful country after 2 world wars and the Cold War, the United States has acted more boldly to interfere in international affairs of other countries, pursue, maintain, and abuse hegemony, advance subversion and infiltration, and willfully wage wars, bringing harm to the international community. All facts, no printer. Okay? The United States has developed a hegemonic playbook to stage color revolutions, true, instigate regional disputes, true, and even directly launch wars under the guise of promoting democracy, freedom, and human rights, also true. Clinging to the Cold War mentality, the United States has ramped up bloc politics and stoked conflict and confrontation. It has overstretched the concept of national security, abused export controls, and forced unilateral sanctions upon others. All of this is true. Yes, so fucking strong, he fucking wrecked the whole Chinese economy and foreign relationship. What? I'm literally more left to most of the chat. Lol. Holy shit, Western leftists are so oblivious on international politics. Wrecking Chinese economy is smart. Yes, so fucking strong. He fucking wrecked the whole Chinese economy and foreign relationships. What? The Chinese economy is where it's at currently as a consequence of its own successes. They're going through their growth phase that America went through in the 80s and 90s. Like they're in their 80s and 90s era. That is, I would say, outside of Xi's control. Brother, China is the first nation to regulate AI tech. As a Muslim, the Uyghur genocide hurts my soul, but to say Xi Jinping is an idiot is in itself idiotic. Yeah. When you're Hasan and you haven't sent for China in 6 seconds, when you're a Western chatter who literally sees anything that is even ostensibly positive as China, because you're correctly mentioning something about China as pro-Chinese propaganda, when I'm also personally criticizing China as well and trying to understand why they're doing this. Hassan, you're literally reading of a Chinese ministry's website? Yes. I read from the American government's website as well. I love reading Chinese propaganda verbatim. I love not understanding what I'm doing here when I talk about this. When I say this is what China says and what China does is entirely two different subject matters. Are you that fucking brain broken that you can't comprehend that, like, I'm reading what they're saying and then simultaneously telling you that, like, what they end up doing will probably be different than what they actually mean, and trying to derive exactly where they're coming from and why they're saying these things. It is really fucking frustrating that this is how reactionary people become. It is frustrating. It's frustrating to fucking read from the Chinese State Department and then try to parse through what they're trying to say while openly stating that, you know, this is PR. Yes. It's frustrating to you because you're a fucking idiot. Okay? Jesus Christ. I haven't even gotten out of the introduction yet, and people are already getting super fucking mad. That's crazy to me. No one complains when you read from NPR, Lamau. I know. They're like, dude, I can't believe you're reading for the Chinese website. Here, I also have other articles literally ready to go from the American, from the good, real news. Okay, don't worry. American anxiety over their crumbling empire and seeing a new, more centralized economic system showing more rapid and effective growth. These internal anxieties will lead Americans to willingly go to war with China. It's fucking insane that you can't even read what China has to say, even if you are going to be critical of it. Like, they just go, dude, that's so insane that you're doing that. Like, I watch White House press briefings on a fucking daily basis. That is psychotic, man. It's not one guy. Don't act like it's only one guy. This community has gotten to the place it's gotten to with like hours and hours and hours of thousands of guys that are exactly like that. I'm so mad right now. Okay. This report, by presenting the relevant facts, seeks to expose the U.S. abuse of hegemony in political, military, economic, financial, technological, and cultural fields to draw greater international attention to the perils of U.S. practices to world peace and stability and the well-being of all peoples. I mean, this is all going to be correct. Like, I don't even know what to say about it other than, like, this shit. They do. America does do this. I don't know Oh, this is the different one. This is not the 12-point peace plan. This is the U.S. hegemony and its perils. It's just a history essay. It's a Howard Zinn. This is why Hate talks about China. If Hasan doesn't criticize it immediately and every second, he's a CCP puppet. If he does criticize it, the LARPing Midwest suburban chatters call him a CIA puppet. I know. To be honest and fair, this community does give off pro-China radiation. Yeah, the reason why this community gives off pro-China radiation is because there are positive aspects of Chinese development, but in the United States of America, you can't fucking even mention that without a million people being like, what are you talking about? China literally wants to fucking do nuclear holocaust to the United States. China wants to do United States shit to the United States. How dare they? Think about the fucking weather balloon or the surveillance balloon that they sent over. That was definitely a declaration of war. I know it. Like, that's why. That's why. The reason why people have an immediate dislike, an intense dislike, that is at the very core, at their very core, whenever anything about China comes up, is because they have anxieties about America's crippling state of affairs, especially in the global sphere. This is a good one, yeah. You know, America is the most propagandized country in history because everyone hates their boss, hates their job, and thinks the government is completely in the pocket of big business, and yet everyone still claims to love capitalism. What Americans do end up hating is not the capitalist who lords over us or the politician who colludes with him, but a secret third thing, the Chinese. Exactly. One of the funniest aspects of this is like literally talking about outsourcing manufacturing to China, which of course is like old news at this point. But like, who put the jobs there? Who sent the jobs there? Who set up the logistics so that jobs could be sent there? Manufacturing could be done there because they'd make a tidy profit. Who? You think it happened on its own? It was the fucking bosses that did that. And it was the politicians that allowed it to happen. And yet, you never think about that. And you think, no, it's the evil Chinese that did that. Yeah, dude. They should have been like, sorry, sir, we will not be stealing American manufacturing jobs. I know that we are starving and we are in desperate and dire need of any kind of foreign capital to come into this country. So we'll literally fundamentally enslave our people for like a brief period in time as we centralize all of the gains, something that Americans have never even heard of, something that hasn't really happened since like the 30s, okay? We'll do that for you. We'll sacrifice a generation of people, 2 generations of people specifically so that like, there's actual Chinese prosperity, okay? As the government is socializing the gains as best as possible. It's those guys. They're the ones who did that. You don't understand. The Chinese stole their bosses and the politicians and made them send our jobs overseas. I feel like xenophobia is following the same trajectory Islamophobia did in the 2000s. Is crazy. No one sees it. Yeah. Except this time the enemy isn't like... The difference between Islamophobia and xenophobia is that the enemy in this regard being a nation state and not like, a bunch of fucking militia groups that we fucking armed 20 years prior and radicalized through a network of madrasas that we funded, you know what I mean? Makes it a little bit harder, especially when we have a steady trade, like a two-way a two-way relationship that is very beneficial to the existence of the average American. Can you imagine a world in which cheap Chinese manufacturing, cheap Chinese goods are not coming into the United States? I mean, they rely on the United States as a consumer, right? We rely on them to manufacture this shit, Can you imagine if jalapeno poppers were no longer $5 at Applebee's? I can imagine that. We saw the reaction that happened in this country when people couldn't go and buy their jalapeno poppers for like a week in Arkansas. Motherfuckers were ready to kidnap their governors, dude, with guns and shit. Are you serious? Absent a steady flow of cheap consumer goods that dull you into, that nullifies all of the oppression that you experience on a daily basis, the structural hurdles that you will never overcome on a daily fucking basis, this country would fall apart. That's the one aspect of neoliberalism that I personally believe is the most adequate way, the most adequate mechanism of control. It's constantly pumping you like you're a fucking French duck, okay, being pumped full of lard so you can fatten up your liver. It's constantly giving you a steady flow of easily accessible consumer goods that are cheap. And in that process, in that sea of consumption, when you're getting all your treats, you go, life is so fucking good. I do love my lard. Things are good. When all else considered, at least I still can go to McDonald's. Okay? Do you also give them credit for the intellectual property theft? Fuck yeah, dude. I don't give a fuck about intellectual property theft. What am I? Am I Mr. Apple? Am I John Apple? I don't give a shit that they steal intellectual property. Bro, that stuff is so funny. It's one of the funniest things it's one of the funniest ways that American capitalists have been able to get the American working class to like literally get mad at China over. Okay? Bitch, you think for the past 30 fucking years, 40 fucking years, you think that like the people that developed the factories didn't realize that China was stealing their IP? Or do you think they knew that that was going to happen and they personally made that deal and allowed it to happen so that they could get cheap manufacturing? That's a part of the deal. That's why what do you think they got duped for 40 years? They were like, what the fuck? That's crazy. Meanwhile, like it doesn't even touch you. Like it doesn't even impact you whether they steal the IP or not. It doesn't even impact you in any way. But you use that as another way. You use that as another way to be like, yeah, they fucking suck. They're stealing IP. Like, why do you care? Why do you care? They give you the freedom to do dumb shit in America that ends up controlling you, which is the complete opposite in China and other past mechanisms of societal control. Yes, I talk about this all the time. And I think that the American mechanism of control is more successful. The only problem is it also relies on a cheap flow of consumer goods to constantly keep you busy, new playthings, new treats. And the manufacturing of said disposable commodities like that is actually, one, devastating on the environment, and two, especially with the current organization of the economy, relies on the continuation of imperialism and new avenues and new labor forces that you can also force into wage slavery. You think it's more successful or more personally preferable? I think it's more successful, demonstrably so. Okay. And also personally preferable too. Yes. That method of control can only work within the imperial core. Seems like a big problem, like it's not sustainable. I mean, of course it's not sustainable. It's crazy that you being practical about the world makes people so upset because you recognize the incentives under capitalism work well regardless of morality, and that is not a reflection of communism being bad. It's just an observation. I mean, that's what people get the most mad at. Like, Das Kapital in and of itself is just a demonstration of how commodities are produced and the relations that people have to the means of production, and expanding on that by talking about how governments have been designed around it. It makes no moral assertions. It makes no moral statements within it. The morality comes from within. You look at that and you go, that's kind of fucked up. Why are you explaining it that way? I'm just telling you how things work. When I explain to you how commodities are produced, you get mad because you're like, well, that seems kind of indecent. And then you turn around and you say, you're the fucking fault. You're the responsible party for making me feel indecent about this process. Like, you don't have to get mad about it. Plenty of fucking vicious, monstrous psychopaths, neoliberals in general, don't feel bad about it at all. As a matter of fact, they've written many books saying this is the best possible structure. You know? But make no mistake, it's you that feels conflicted morally about it. And in that anger, you end up lashing out at whoever the fuck that is right in front of you in your immediate vicinity. You lash out at the messenger. You were not saying it's a good method. You were just describing how financialization under neoliberal control is a better way to create power structures under capital. You were describing how capital creates power. No, I think treats are important to sedate the masses. You have to do it somehow. And I don't think that human beings like feeling controlled. And you have to make it seem like they are making these decisions for themselves like they do in the Western world. So, yes, I do think that people need to constantly make these, fake choices in their lives and get a steady flow of treats. I do. I think it's idealistic to assume that everyone is going to be super, super educated and understand and recognize that the government's decisions are actually good for the betterment of mankind, when most people do not care about that at all, especially in their day-to-day. People also fail to remember on how to understand China used to be a democratic country that was colonized by various European countries and Japan, and the only way they fought their way out of Western imperialism was to become a communist state. How are socialist countries going to defend a revolution? I mean, I'm not talking about right now. I'm not talking about what's going on currently or what could currently happen. I'm talking about a different third thing, let's say, where there's like an international socialist order. In that circumstance, I think the continuation of that would be done through similar neoliberal mechanisms of control. Anyway. The reason it feels slightly like a personal attack about jalapeno poppers is because there's a way of expressing yourself through consumption habits. It's a meantime good enough feeling that makes you not want to risk the comforts you have. Yes. This is why
last year in April.
This is why Revcom schizos call you a revisionist. Yeah, but they're Revcom people. Like, who gives a fuck what they have to say? Also, I don't even care. Like, whatever. Yeah, I'm bad. I know.